Imagine this. China invades Taiwan. Chinese warplanes fill the sky and explosions shake the streets of Taipei. Chaos spread across Asia. What would the Philippines do? At first glance, the Philippines might seem like a small, distant player. Just a small country in Southeast Asia with limited military power. In reality, it's much more than that. This archipelago of 7,000 islands sits at the heart of the storm. Why? Just look at the map. Its location alone puts it on the front lines. The Philippines' northernmost island, Mavulus, is only 90 miles away from Taiwan. That's closer than a short flight from Manila to Hong Kong. This proximity means that the Philippines isn't just a bystander in a potential Taiwan conflict, it would be a key player. As President Donald Trump once put it, this archipelago is a prime piece of real estate, the most strategic location of all. But again, here's the million-dollar question. Would the Philippines actually go to war with China over Taiwan? Let's break it down. For years, the Philippines and China have been locked in a bitter dispute over the South China Sea, one of the most contested regions in the world. Manila claims part of this sea as its own exclusive economic zone, rich in fish and natural gas. But Beijing has a very different view. It insists that these waters belong to China since ancient times, under its so-called 9-dash line. The result of this dispute? Constant provocations, intimidations, and clashes. Filipino fishermen often report being harassed by Chinese coast guards, forced out of what they consider their own waters. Manila also accuses China of escalating things further, firing water cannons at Filipino boats and even pointing a military laser at some Filipino crew members, temporarily blinding them. These aren't just isolated incidents. They are provocations carefully designed to stay below the threshold of war. And while neither side wants open conflict, each incident brings them dangerously close. But here's where things get even more interesting. In response to China's growing assertiveness in the South China Sea, the Philippines has taken decisive steps. Under President Marcos Jr., Manila has shifted its foreign policy, seeking the support of its oldest ally, the United States. Washington has answered this call by providing Manila with weapons, military training, and promises of protection under their Mutual Defense Treaty, which essentially obligates the US to defend the Philippines if it comes under attack. But the US doesn't provide this support for free. Of course, it has its own interests. What does Washington want in return? The Philippines' strategic location. Think about it. As we said before, the Philippines lies just 90 miles from Taiwan, right in the Luzon Strait, a vital water route between Manila and Taipei. This location has historically been crucial. Throughout the Cold War, the Philippines hosted major bases that supported American troops during the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Now, with tensions rising between China and Taiwan, Washington wants to use the Philippines as a forward base once again. Under Marcos Jr., Manila has opened 4 new military bases to the US, bringing the total to 9. Why does it matter? Because several of these new bases are located in the north of Philippines, right next to the Luzon Strait. The message is clear. These bases are not just about defending the Philippines. They are about preparing for a potential war over Taiwan. If China invades Taiwan, US forces in the Philippines would be perfectly positioned to respond quickly, mobilizing troops, launching airstrikes, and shipping supplies, especially compared to faraway bases in South Korea or Guam. The proximity cuts down logistical challenges, making the Philippines a critical hub for American operations. Imagine the scenario of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. In an amphibious operation, China would likely have to deal with a multi-front attack, a pincer movement, where forces from Japan push from the north while forces from the Philippines move from the south. China would eventually find itself encircled, forced to fight the Japanese, the Filipinos, and the Americans on at least 2 fronts. With US bases in the Philippines, American troops could also enforce a blockade of China's maritime supply routes, cutting off food, fuel, and other critical resources. some of the consequences of hosting these bases are already becoming clear. American troops are now conducting joint military exercises with Filipino forces, simulating responses to a potential invasion of Taiwan. At the same time, the Filipino government is also making plans on how to evacuate hundreds of thousands of Filipino overseas workers based in Taiwan, ensuring that the country is ready for all scenarios. Last but not the least, Manila is also strengthening security ties with other allies like Japan, Canada, the UK, and Australia, as well as forging new partnerships with countries like Vietnam and Germany. Now, not everyone's happy about this closer military cooperation with the US and other partners. Some Filipinos, including former President Rodrigo Duterte, warn that hosting American forces could provoke China and risk dragging the Philippines into a devastating war. On the other hand, others argue that this alliance actually serves as a powerful deterrent, making the costs of an invasion so high that China might think twice before attacking Taiwan at all. So, here's the million-dollar question for you. Is the Philippines' closer alignment with the US preventing war, or is it pushing the region closer to the edge? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The Philippines is no longer just an observer in the shadow of major global players. Instead, Manila is actively preparing for two potential scenarios: a serious confrontation in the South China Sea and a conflict over Taiwan. With the US increasingly relying on the Philippines as a military partner and China watching its every move, the stakes are higher than ever. Will the Philippines fully commit to the US and join its fight against China? Or will it pull back and remain neutral in one of the most explosive conflicts the world could ever see? All we know is that the Philippines is now a critical player in a geopolitical chess game that could shape the future of Asia. And the world will be watching closely. See you in the next video.